Before we continue, I want to invite you to join my free Facebook community, The Gluten-Free Engineer. It's a space where you can connect with others living gluten-free, ask questions, swap tips and recipes, and get support from people who truly get it. Whether you're newly diagnosed or a seasoned gluten-free pro, you'll feel right at home. Just search The Gluten-Free Engineer on Facebook or click the link in the show notes to join. All right, now back to the show. Quick reminder before we get started on this episode. This podcast is based on my personal experiences and isn't medical advice. If you've ever felt like your gluten-free journey is a winding road full of questions, misdiagnoses, or it's all in your head moments, today's episode is for you. I'm chatting with Michelle Kooi, a fellow gluten-free warrior who opens up about her path to healing after years of health struggles and food confusion. Michelle shares what finally led her to discover the root of her symptoms, how her life has changed since going gluten-free, and why she's passionate about helping others feel seen and supported in their own journey. Whether you're newly diagnosed or have been living gluten-free for years, her story is both validating and inspiring. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Gluten-Free Engineer podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Saunders. In 2011, I was diagnosed with celiac disease, a moment that changed everything. But I was determined not to let it hold me back. With my 2 engineering degrees, I set out to reverse engineer the gluten-free lifestyle, breaking down recipes, safety tips, travel hacks, and everything in between to rebuild a life I love. Whether you have celiac disease, gluten intolerance, or simply choose to live gluten-free, this podcast is for you. Join me each week as we simplify the gluten-free lifestyle, make it fun, and prove that you don't have to miss out on anything. Welcome back to the show. Today we have a special guest with us, and her name is Michelle Kooi. She's a professional coach, writer, and CPA who helps entrepreneurs, financial professionals, and ADHD business owners create sustainable businesses without burnout. And she has been on a gluten-free journey for a good while now. So, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, Carrie.
So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about who Michelle is from, both the business side that I just gave a little summary on, as well as, a little bit about when you started this gluten-free journey that you've been on.
Yes. So I have my business, which is Confluence Coaching and Consulting, which I started in 2022. And I absolutely love working with female entrepreneurs and helping them with time and energy management, with mindset. I work with new business owners, so usually in their first 3 years and often in the first year. So there's a big switch, especially if they've never been a business owner before. The mindset shift from being an employee to becoming a business owner is a big one. And having struggled with burnout multiple times in my career as a CPA, and kind of coming to the brink of that in my own business, I know how we wear so many hats as an entrepreneur that we just can easily overextend ourselves. And so I am super passionate about health and nutrition, and my gluten-free journey really was a pivotal point in my life. So that started in 2012, quite by accident, in just exploring. I had been exploring for decades, like my issues with chronic fatigue, and gluten-free was the magic solution to that.
So it sounds like you've been gluten-free for just about as long as myself. I think it was about 2011 when I accidentally figured it out too for me. So what helped you figure out that you needed to be gluten-free? Was there something that you read or saw or did, or somebody talked to you about it? Or, how did you figure that out?
Yeah. So I had spent decades like seeing doctors, different, from traditional doctors to alternative medicine practitioners, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, chiropractic, energy work, all kinds of supplements, diets, all kinds of things. No one ever suggested that gluten might be the culprit. And I was reading one of a magazine. I don't know if it was one of my food magazines. I love to cook. But there was an article in there interviewing Chris Carr, who is, she wrote the Crazy Sexy Diet, and she is a cancer survivor. And she was talking about um, her journey and her 21-day cleanse. And while I didn't have cancer, I really resonated with some of the things she talked about. And I decided to buy the book and do the 21-day cleanse. And it was uh pretty intense. So it was gluten-free, sugar-free, coffee-free, alcohol-free, and vegan.
Oh, wow.
So I cut out a lot of things all at once. And the first 5 days, I felt like I had the flu. Like I felt horrible. But then I started to feel a little better, and like I was sort of coming out of a tunnel almost. And by the second week, by day 14, my energy was better than it had been in a long time, and I was feeling clearer. And by the third week, I felt better than I can ever remember feeling. And I didn't know what I'd gotten rid of that did it. So I was actually afraid to go back to what I was eating. And the way she teaches it is you need to reintroduce things slowly to figure out what it is. And so I slowly started introducing different things. Um, I remained vegan for 18 months because I just felt so good. Um, I kept that, but every time I hit gluten and I added that back, I would just crash for 5 days. And it would take 5 days to get it out of my system and start to feel better. Um, but I was in complete denial because I love bread and pizza and crackers. And so I kept thinking, oh, it's a coincidence. It's not that. And so after about 4 or 5 tries of adding it back, it became clear to me that was it. And so I decided, well, I guess this is where I'm at. I'm going to be gluten free. And back in 2012, there was, you know, hardly any options for at restaurants or in the supermarket for gluten free items. So um, it was a bit of a challenge, but I had to relearn how to cook because I had not been vegan before. And of course, you don't have to be vegan to be gluten free, but I wanted to remain that way because I felt so good. Um, so I suddenly had the energy to do some things that I had not done, and I started trail running. But my first thought at the end of the 3 weeks, my husband and I had been having marital problems for years. I literally at 3 weeks, I decided I finally have the energy to get a divorce. So
Wow.
it was a complete life-changing year, for sure.
It sure sounds like it. And, as you're talking, I know what it's like to be vegan too, because I've got, friends that are vegan, and I'm thinking, and one of my children's girlfriends was a vegetarian whenever they, started dating. And being gluten free and vegan or vegetarian, it can be really hard because a lot of the components that you eat to bring in the proteins and things like that are typically have wheat or barley or rye, or maybe oats that aren't gluten free. So I can see how that would be even extra restrictive on top of it. And I actually accidentally figured it out via a book too. It's a different book, The Primal Blueprint. And it was kind of similar in that, you ate primally, you cut out the sugar, you cut out the dairy, you cut out quite a bit, few things. You tried to eat, more grass-fed type of um, meat products if you're eating meat products. And it was pretty obvious after 2 weeks of eating this way and having a cheat day on Fridays, like having a cheat meal on Fridays, because he's like got an 80-20 rule. I felt like I had the flu all weekend. So I can totally relate to you feeling so terrible for about 5 days. I mean, I was completely debilitated with fatigue and migraines and stomach issues. And, I just felt awful. So I'm glad that like a book helped open your eyes to not only what was bothering you, but to this new world. And I like to describe it too as like everything became in high definition. You don't realize when you're eating something that's incompatible with your body what it does to you, because it slowly over time starts making you feel bad. And when I went off gluten, it was like the world was in high definition again. I had the energy, I could see the world in a different light. And I sounds like it was kind of similar to you when you realized that gluten was your problem.
I can completely relate to that. So after about a year and a half, I decided to start experimenting, and I discovered that actually wheat was my issue. So I discovered I can actually eat barley and rye with no issues, but
Hmm.
it's the wheat that I'm sensitive to.
That's interesting. For me, barley actually, I mean, I can't have all three because I'm celiac, but barley
Mhm.
affects me worse than wheat or rye, I have found. So it's interesting how our bodies will kind of, treat things a little bit differently. And wheat is the most common form of gluten that we have in our food today, unless you're, purposely seeking out, something with just barley or rye. So that's interesting that wheat affects you more.
Yes, yes. And I just I went and do a deep dive on learning all about it. I read the book Wheat Belly,
Mm-hmm.
and just learned about the history of, some agriculture around wheat and the changes in it in the United States in the last 60 years. And the gluten, the wheat today has so much more gluten in it than it did because of it being hybridized and um, things like that, more and more people are recognizing that they need to be gluten-free because our bodies just aren't designed to digest that type of product. Um, and so I also, about 3 months later, I decided to go through a program with the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York, um, to get a holistic coaching certification. And I really went through that not to become a coach, but to just learn more about nutrition and health. And I went through that program for 2 years, and just learned so much. And my because people started noticing the changes in my energy and what I was doing, and I and how I looked, like my eyes were brighter, um, and I got in the best shape of my life because I had the energy. I mean, I had always worked out my whole life, but my stamina was not good, and that completely changed. Um, and so people started asking, like, what are you doing? Like, I want what you have. So people started asking me to coach them around their around health and diet. And so I started doing that, just and to share, what I had learned. And it was just so rewarding to be able to change people's lives. I ended up um, just keeping that and moving forward, but I didn't really pursue that as a career. Um, and then about 2019, the uh, idea of becoming a coach, which I had actually had back in 2010, um, came back and very strongly, and I started coaching clients in my CPA world, business clients, and helping them understand more about their money and their relationship with money and um, their mindset and emotions around that. And I decided to get another coaching certification and went through the Coactive Training Institute, which was my most recent program.
So whenever and I love how you talk about how much better you felt after being gluten free, because I find that to be the case for just about everybody that I've run into, that either I've helped or they've come to me for questions because they know I've been celiac or I've been celiac probably all of my life, but haven't known until like 2011. So what other changes did you have after going gluten free? Were there any other revelations, like did you have like less migraines or less skin issues, or was your hair better? Like, did you have any of those type of good benefits from going gluten free that aren't maybe quite the typical thought of being gluten free?
I didn't really have skin issues or digestive issues, surprisingly, from gluten. So, um, I mean, really, my biggest one was my energy, which, our energy is everything. Like, if we don't
Mm-hmm.
have the energy to participate in life, I mean, it affects our relationships with uh, our family, our kids, our work. I remember I used to have to take naps at work under my desk. I would shut my door and sleep under my desk on the floor like a kindergartner after lunch, because I would be so tired, when I was eating gluten. And of course, again, I didn't know that's what it was. Um, and so I got more time back. Um, I didn't need that anymore. Um, and I was able to, like I said, I was able to exercise more and more and intensely. So my physical health improved greatly from being able to have the energy to do that. I was able to um, make some changes in how I worked. And so it really affected a lot of different areas of my life. And at the same time, so my daughter was in high school at the time, and she saw me go through this transition. Um, and she had been having some digestive issues. And my husband and I did end up going through a divorce. And so she would be a week at his house and a week at my house. And she noticed that the week she was at my house, she felt better. And so, um, because my house was gluten free. And
Mm-hmm.
so she, I suggested she do it for a while. And of course, she was like 15, and that's just like totally not. After kind of seeing the changes that I made, and her stomach problems getting worse, she decided to try it. And she had almost immediate relief from her stomach pain. And because that was her biggest symptom. And so she has been gluten free to this day since she was 15. And so she's been gluten free for 12 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that actually kind of relates a lot to some things that we ran into is like we've had our children have had either friends or girlfriends or current girlfriends that they were having symptoms. One of them actually we actually kind of helped a former girlfriend figure out she actually had celiac. She got tested. My oldest was like, I think you might have celiac based upon all the problems that she was having, and she was anemic, she was fainting all the time, so her iron levels were really low, and she always had stomach issues. And she actually had celiac disease. And then another girlfriend um, was always having stomach issues. She couldn't figure out what was wrong. She was always having stomach issues. She was the one that's vegetarian or was vegetarian. And my middle child was like, maybe you should try to take out gluten for a little bit, see how you feel. And she felt immediately better. Her stomach issues went away. And she now eats protein, animal proteins now, in a careful manner, because she needs the extra protein, because it's a little harder, like I said, when you're vegetarian or vegan, to quite, especially as a college age person, to get what you need nutritionally. And yeah, I mean, there's just been so many people we ran into that we've either helped them realize had celiac. A couple other band members, we helped them realize they had celiac in marching band in high school, or realize that they were intolerant. And what I like to talk about a lot on the podcast too is, we need to make gluten free easy. And I know you mentioned to me, in the intake questions, that it can be easy. And, you've already talked about how it's made your life easier. Cause sometimes people will be like, how can you stand being gluten free? Doesn't that make things harder? I'm like, no, I feel so much better. And I have so much more energy, and life is so much fuller. And so I'd love to hear your perspective of why is living gluten free easy, and how do you make it easy?
Yes. That's great. So yeah, I love this topic, because I hear that all the time. Um, people say to me, that they couldn't be gluten-free because it's too hard. And how do I do it? How do I, like, if they put bread on the table at, at a restaurant at dinner, how do you not eat it? And I'm like, it's completely, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Like, I look at that
Yeah.
bread and I see it as poison for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, why would I eat something that's going to make me feel horrible? Like, for days. Why would I,
Right.
so it's like I look at that, and my instant connection is feeling terrible. Like, so it doesn't even look appealing to me because I know how I'm going to feel after I eat it. And so um I yeah, it's just not even a question. I like to say that you don't know how good you can feel until you feel that good,
Mm-hmm.
because when after that 3 weeks of that cleanse, I don't remember feeling that good probably since I was a child. Like, and interesting, and probably, and maybe never. So I was actually diagnosed when I was 6 years old with a gluten, or not with a wheat allergy, or not wheat
Mm.
allergy, but just my doctor told my mom to take me off of wheat. So I was off of wheat for 6 months. And, I don't really remember much about that time other than my mom really struggling and just being just like stressed about what she was going to cook for me and how she was going to do this. Like, no peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, no crackers, no, like, and so we did that for 6 months. And then the doctor said, well, I think she's grown out of it. You can put her back on wheat. Well, you don't grow out of something like that. Like, but because my system had cleared when I started eating it again, I wasn't having the same symptoms. And again, I don't even remember what was going on as to what led them to take me off of wheat. But I I really forgot about it. I mean, it was only 6 at the time, so um, it uh, it just changed. It didn't really manifest as intensely until I was probably 14 or 15, is when I started really being aware and noticing, like, that other people had more energy than I did. I was a competitive gymnast from probably age 10 to 14. And so just working out like 3-4 hours a day, competing, traveling. And um, at about the time that I left that, I started noticing just like that other people had more energy than I did. And I didn't understand why. And that led me to seeking out some unhealthy or alternatives to get more energy, drinking more
Mm-hmm.
caffeine, um, and some diet pill supplements. Like, I remember taking Dexatrim in high school, um, not to lose weight. I was thin, but for the caffeine in it to
Mm-hmm.
give me more energy. So I think it's very, it's not common knowledge that um, it can affect you that way. And again, it affects different people different way. I know some people that have gluten sensitivities, or that fatigue is not their main issue, and they don't really struggle with that. But that was definitely my experience.
Yeah, and I actually remember as a kid, as you were talking, like my grandmother taking me to the doctor because I started living with her in fourth grade, and her telling the doctor that she's tired all the time. She always complains of being tired all the time. I don't really remember being tired, but I remember my grandmother saying, "Why are you tired all the time?" Or going to the doctors and saying, "She's tired all the time. We can't figure out why she's tired all the time." So I do know that fatigue can be one of the major things because your body's fighting. It's fighting for its health. It's trying to fight off this substance that's in it that it sees as foreign and as as this bad thing, and we don't realize it, generally at the time. And you talking about the bread on the table, I'm the same way. Like, I don't even like, it's not even a consideration. I don't even miss it. Like, I can make bread better than just about any other place out there now, and so I don't
Yeah.
even miss it. And ironically, being celiac, and I've heard this from other celiacs too, I can't even walk down the bread aisle without getting a headache. I have to actually take a breath, hold it as I walk through the bread aisle quickly and then release my air and then start breathing again on the other side of the bread because my body has even come attuned to the smell of it giving me a headache. Or if I go into like a donut shop or a pizza place, like it gives me an instant headache. So once you've removed it from our system, many times our bodies will find other ways, like your association of just looking at it and, associating it with something that's going to make you feel bad and that it's more like poison. Our bodies will help us along those lines as we are, gluten free for longer and help keep us safer.
Yes. So back to the easy. So I love to cook. And so I can easily look at a recipe and modify it for gluten. Um, so there are things that you don't even recognize that have wheat in it, like soy sauce.
Mm-hmm.
So I uh, I switched to tamari, which is gluten free, for many years, but then I am now soy free as well. And so tamari has soy in it. So now I use coconut aminos. So there's there's hidden things. I'm really good at reading labels, on things, but I mean, I can look at many, many recipes and modify them, for gluten. It's really not that hard. There's substitutes, and there's just getting creative. Like that's where I feel like I am, um, sometimes the most creative is in the kitchen, and so
Mm-hmm.
um, I like finding um, recipes and just making sometimes it's just a few small tweaks to make it gluten free, and other times it's a little bit bigger one. But it definitely, I think the fear of going gluten free is that people are going, most of us like to eat, and
Mm-hmm.
I would call myself a foodie, and so you know, don't take away, like, I believe food can be healthy and delicious. It's not one or the other. And so, um, I want people to know that going gluten free does not mean that you lose your ability to go out to eat. You don't lose your ability to enjoy, you know, eating, again, and cooking. Like it is absolutely doable. And again, just feeling better, makes things easier. When you're tired all the time, everything feels hard, like
Mm-hmm.
everything. Um, Decision fatigue and whatever. So it just, I feel like going gluten free has made my life easier.
I completely agree with you there too. And whenever, and you talking about, working in the kitchen and converting these recipes, I would love to encourage those listening to us, to hear our stories about this. We both love to have that challenge of, converting a recipe to gluten free. And I kind of like to look at it as therapy. Like it's therapeutic for me, even if you're not a good cook yet, just try it out. It's therapeutic to accomplish changing that recipe to be something that you can eat. Like that makes you feel good about yourself emotionally, as well as, you're loving the food that you're eating too. But I find it as therapy. And so I would encourage anybody listening to maybe look at it in that perspective. This is a good way to heal your mind, as you're healing your body. And taking on these small challenges is going to make you a stronger person. I know I was a good cook before I realized I had to be gluten free, but like my friends and my family tell me I'm such an amazing cook, and my children have tried to convince me to open a gluten free restaurant. I'm like, I do not want to run a restaurant. But thanks for the compliment, guys. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you can relate there. Do you find it a bit therapeutic to be able to convert that recipe, to gluten free and make it still be as tasty and texture, fun as it was otherwise?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I love it. I look at it as a little bit of a challenge. And again, it brings out my creativity. I think, there are, some skills to learn or just knowledge around what things to substitute, like the soy sauce, tamari gluten free,
Hmm.
um, uh, you know, coconut aminos, that's just one item, but there are a number of things that can be switched out. And so, kind of learning. So having some tools in your toolbox, I had to keep a list for a while of like things that I needed. Like if I wanted to use this, then I needed to use that. Like, and now I don't even have to think about it because I've been doing it for so long. But initially, like it does take just learning some of those substitutes. But, I think cooking is fun. And I know some people do not. Um, but I know even some of those companies where you can order like the food, prepackaged that you can assemble the meal. I don't know that I have never used one of those, but I know some people use
Mhm.
that for um, that. You can request gluten-free for recipes for through those organizations. There's so many gluten-free cookbooks out there, and gluten-free magazines with recipes in it. Like um, it just I feel like it made me a better cook. Like you said, like I also feel like I am a good cook and get compliments on my cooking, but I feel like I actually became a better cook. I broadened um my repertoire. Like I started experimenting with different spices and different um just different ways to add, maybe add more protein into the meal or add, especially when I was vegan as well.
Mhm.
Um, and adding superfoods in and um, things like that. Like I truly believe that food is medicine,
Mhm.
and our food system today, there's so much processed food, and our bodies just aren't meant for that. Like we are meant to eat real food, so you always hear like
Yep.
the shop on the perimeter of the store, to just meat, dairy, produce, and you can um, create your meal from that. So just like relying less on processed foods and relying more on, real actual food, like that helps improve our health as well. So because I know some people you can go gluten free and then substitute with a lot of processed food for
Mhm.
gluten free, and um that doesn't necessarily make you healthier. Yes, you might be gluten free, but I don't know how much better you're going to feel just eating a whole bunch of processed foods, because a lot of that also has added sugars and fillers and other things like that. So I think in combination with that is um, really understanding um, and learning more about like nutrients, making sure that your food is nutrient dense, as well as being delicious.
Yes. But I think that's one of the blessings of being either celiac or gluten intolerant is we're forced to look at what we're putting in our bodies. And so that helps us over time as we learn more, make better decisions on the foods that we put in our bodies. And, it's one of the things I encourage on our podcast is yes, you might find those processed gluten-free substitutes, and they might be okay for like an occasional treat, if you're not, that good of a baker or something. But we definitely need to be putting in the whole foods instead as the majority of what we're eating so that we're fueling our body properly and feeling much better. Because, like you said, those processed gluten free foods many times have extra sugar, extra preservatives, extra whatnot, just so that it can make it, from the, warehouse to your store, safely and then into your kitchen. So we really got to be careful about those processed gluten free foods. So, in closing, I'd like to ask before we completely wrap up, let's go to the processed foods of gluten free. Do you have a favorite gluten free processed snack you would love to tell us about? And I know that you try to minimize that. And then also, is there a favorite gluten-free recipe you like to make at home?
Oh my goodness. Um, I mean, probably the thing I eat the most often is a brown rice English muffin.
Mm,
Um, that is, I think it's Food for Life is the brand. Um, and I probably eat that with breakfast like 5 days a week. So like this morning I had smashed avocado with sprouts or microgreens on my on my English muffin. So that's a very common breakfast for me. Another one is this almond flour crackers. I cannot remember the brand of it at the moment. But
Sam Mills is one of my favorites
that's
for
it.
almond.
Simple
Is
Mills.
that it?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. Those are my absolute favorite crackers. And recipes. I mean, I I can't even think of one. I mean, I have to go with the crackers just because that popped in my head. I have this dip that I make that is absolutely a huge hit at parties. Like, pretty much that's my go-to thing to bring is the almond flour crackers with some veggies and this dip. So it's a roasted almond and roasted red pepper almond dip. And it is super easy to make in the food processor. So it's just like a jar of, or not even a whole jar of roasted red peppers, and then a couple tablespoons of olive oil, some roasted almonds, and some salt and pepper, and just blend that all up. And it's like pretty. It's like this orangey red color, and it is so good. And it's gluten-free and it's vegan, so you can, like, pretty much anybody at any party can eat it unless they are allergic to almonds.
Nuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have you send me that recipe sometime. That sounds delicious because we're always looking for, something like that, a go-to thing that you can bring to parties. So I know we talked earlier before we started the podcast recording that you have a book coming out and it's part business, but it also has some of your gluten-free journey in it too. So can you tell me a little bit about the book that's coming out?
Yes. So this has been a labor of love. So I honestly, I started writing this book in 2010, and I got about halfway through, and my son started having some health issues, and then I got divorced, and things just went crazy. So I literally set it down. I didn't look at it for until 2018. Did not even look at it. I picked it up in 2018 and decided I wanted that it was not even relevant anymore because so much had changed in my life. So I started over. So I started writing the book again in 2019. So it's been 6 years of working on this. The book is called Burn: Struggle to Strength, A Woman's Guide to Reclaiming Herself. So it is really about getting in touch with your intuition, with your body, with your emotions, um, and with yourself. It's like coming home to yourself is a lot about what the book is about. So we talk about boundaries, we talk about um, changing perspective, we talk about fear, anxiety, but I do talk about my gluten-free story at several points in the book because again, it was just a life-changing. There's a whole chapter on energy and having energy, and so it's sprinkled in there in different pieces about my journey and how it really changed everything for me.
That sounds like a great, inspiring book,
So
especially those you going through maybe a new diagnosis of celiac or, newly learning they're gluten intolerant or something like that, so that you can really look inward into yourself and just reclaim your energy and focus and really, claim what you are and not be afraid of it and, move forward with life the best you can.
yes. And then in 2021, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is a hypothyroid disorder. And so I've been
Mhm.
managing that through nutrition as well. I'm not on any pharmaceuticals for that. I know that's not possible for everyone, but that was very important to me to just be able to manage it with diet. So I've definitely added another component to my nutritional journey
Mhm.
with that. And again, learned, but discovered new recipes, just like I did when I became gluten free, and new favorites, and some new ways of doing things. So we're always learning and learning more about our bodies, and we only get one. So helping it be the best it can be is so important.
I love that. And I think that's a great place to wrap up. So, because it's such great advice. And I'd love to tell the listeners that they just need to take care of their bodies and listen to it. So, thank you so much, Michelle, for being on our podcast today. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation and learning more about your gluten-free journey.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Gluten-Free Engineer. If you found value in this story, please share it with someone who might need encouragement on their own gluten-free journey. For more tips, recipes, resources, and even links to my YouTube channel, head on over to theglutenfreeengineer.com. It's your one-stop hub to make gluten-free living simple, fun, and full of flavor. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on an episode. And we will see you next week. The Gluten-Free Engineer podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. I share my personal experiences and stories about living with celiac disease and navigating a gluten-free lifestyle. This podcast does not provide medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional for medical questions, concerns, or advice specific to your health. This episode is brought to you by Find Me Gluten-Free, your go-to app for discovering safe, gluten-free dining options wherever you go. Whether you're traveling or just looking for a new local spot, this app helps you find restaurants with gluten-free options, read reviews from other gluten-free diners, and avoid risky places, just like our family has used this app for many years. And here's the best part. Just for the Gluten-Free Engineer listeners, you can get an exclusive $5 discount on a premium membership. Head on over to theglutenfreeengineer.com/findmeglutenfree or check the show notes to grab your deal and make dining out stress-free, because eating out gluten-free shouldn't be a guessing game.